This is Hannibal here with a daily wrestling news update. Former UFC fighter who is now a boxer, mostly Saudi Arabia. Francis Ngannou, his 15-year-old son has died. This has just been reported. I guess he was unresponsive. The cause of death is unknown, but Ngannou made a post about this. So that's not very good. Everyone knows that there was a dispute with money with him in UFC. He was one of the rising stars in UFC. You don't hear much about him anymore, but he is making a ton of money. He got $20 million for getting knocked out in the second round by Anthony Joshua in his most recent boxing match that only got 4,600 pay-per-view buys. Think about this. He got $20 million. Francis alone got $20 million to not even go 2 rounds on a fight that only got 4,600 pay-per-view buys. Not 46,000, 4,600, which is a horrible pay-per-view buy rate. So it's amazing the kind of money they throw around in Saudi Arabia for stuff that doesn't even draw. Cody Rhodes, for people reporting that he was injured, apparently the injury is not very serious, and he's still going to be fighting AJ Styles on this WWE pay-per-view in France this weekend. The interesting thing about both the SmackDown and pay-per-view in France is they're not sold out. Usually these international pay-per-views sell out really fast, but they seem to have lost a lot of momentum since The Rock has been off WWE TV. They had the lowest SmackDown rating of the year that featured a confrontation between Rhodes and Styles last Friday night. A lot of complaints about this WWE draft, which again, usually the draft does well in ratings. It bombed on for the SmackDown rating. Stephanie McMahon appeared for the Raw draft, but apparently where usually only about 15% of the wrestlers remain on the same brands, about 85% of the wrestlers in this draft were drafted to their own brands, which you know what the only thing I watched about the draft is the YouTube clips of the people like the Dudleys and stuff doing drafts just to see what the Dudleys are looking like these days and so forth. Um, they switch wrestlers around all the time anyways, but yeah, it's pretty much all the same people. 85% of it remain the same. Obviously, Triple H is head of creative in WWE now. That probably has something to do with Stephanie McMahon's appearance in WWE for the draft last night. But when I see Stephanie McMahon, all I think about is Vince McMahon. So it'll be interesting to see if the ratings keep going down, if they will. And you know, The Rock has a history of not getting along with Triple H. Obviously, The Rock is technically his boss now, so it's a different situation. But it'll be interesting to see how long Triple H lasts if things continue to fall. I mean, this is nothing to panic about yet or anything, but I mean, there's been significant drops in the ratings over the last 3-ish weeks. As far as the people wondering if the WWE Legends contracts are going to remain during this new TKO regime, who has been cutting a lot of people, both behind the scenes and some wrestlers, as we've seen in recent weeks. Apparently, the Legend contracts are only like 10,000 a year, and the royalties go against the contract. So, say you're the Honky Tonk Man under a Legend contract, which I believe he is, and you get toys made or whatever, you sign a bunch of autographs. If they don't make more than 10,000 or if your cut of the royalties isn't more than 10,000, you don't get anything extra. So it's very, very little pay. UFC 301 coming up this weekend. Very weak show as far as name value. As far as the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight that I brought up is going to be a real fight yesterday. I listened to Dave Meltzer talk about it on the Wrestling Observer Radio. Tyson is currently 57 and Jake Paul is 27. However, Tyson will be 58 at the time of this fight. The main thing is, other than the age difference, is they are going to fight at heavyweight, and Jake Paul hasn't fought at heavyweight before. This is not the greatest difference in age ever between boxers. There was a fight last year where a 28-year-old knocked out a 54-year-old in Tennessee. So there you go. It happened. Didn't go well for the older fighter in that. I would say, as I said yesterday, the biggest risk for Mike Tyson, I would say, is I've read his books. I mean, he was a very, very heavy, hard drug user for a lot of years, and he started when he was like 14-ish. Heavy partier. Jake Paul, well, he parties here and there, as I've seen some interviews with him where he said he's hungover. He's not doing like hard drugs. And I've seen Mike Tyson, I believe on a Logan Paul podcast, shove down like a couple handfuls of mushrooms. I mean, I don't know I don't know how bad or good mushrooms are for you, but he has a weed company. So it's like I can tell you personally, I was more of a weed gummy eater or weed drink eater when I did it, but on the times that I was smoking weed, I and I let's say I smoked weed one day and I was trying to run the next day, it definitely affected my cardio in a negative impact, which is one of the reasons why I stopped smoking it and pretty much don't use it at all anymore. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, especially the non-smoking kind, but I'm just saying that Tyson has done so many drugs over the years that it has to take some sort of a toll on his body. But there's no question, I think this will be Mike Tyson's biggest fight ever. He's never had a fight in a stadium before other than the Tokyo Dome, which here's an interesting fact. Vader versus Stan Hansen, which was the day before the Mike Tyson match, I think, in the Tokyo Dome, actually drew more than Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas at the time. But between this fight airing on Netflix, so people aren't going to have to buy pay-per-views for it. It's going to have a massive crowd, and then being in a stadium, Dallas, Texas, a city I like very much. I think it's going to do extremely well for viewership. The last thing I'll talk about is I did an interview with Rick Bassman a couple days ago that's premiering right now on this channel and also on Rick Bassman's YouTube channel. He talks about his heat with John Cena, Samoa Joe, Jim Cornette. He confirms a story that everyone's pretty much said that Roddy Piper was doing hard drugs right up until the time of his death. Bassman helped book Piper in a bunch of movies. Bassman was also a movie agent. Talks about the UPW deal with WWE, uh, Sting and the Ultimate Warrior, how Sting and the Warrior initially kind of screwed him, and then Sting ended up making up for it. The Warrior didn't. Talks about living with the Ultimate Warrior and Sting. Just goes on and on and on about almost every single person he's trained and worked with, such as The Miz, Luther Reigns, Heidenreich, Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff. It's well worth watching. He is fighting brain cancer right now, going through radiation therapy. So we wanted to get all of this on the record. So the link to that is in the description. Please give this video a thumbs up. Have a wonderful day, and if Francis Ngannou is not going to hear this, but I'm sorry about the loss of his son.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on